Okay, so as I said, L1 is your X, L2 is your Y. To get to your list on your blue calculator, you just need to hit the list button, which is 4 buttons above the 8. If you have a bigger calculator, you need to go to Stat and then Enter to edit. So L1 and L2, all we're going to do is enter these values. So L1, type in 10, enter, 12, enter. So enter all of your L1 values, all of your L2 values. Okay, so when you're done, something you really need to make sure of is that you have the same number of X values as you do Y values and that they're matched up appropriately. Whenever we move on and we try to do something and it gives you an error message, I've had 2 people today who have not had, they've either been missing a value or they had an extra value and it messes up the calculator, you can't move on. Okay, so make sure you have the correct values in here. Okay, next order of business. You are going to, our goal is to find the equation, but we're going to go over a couple of things extra just so that you really know what you're doing, all right? So from this, I can graph the scatter plot. So whenever I hit graph, mine is there. So when you hit graph on your calculator, it should look like this because you haven't entered any of the appropriate information to make it graph properly. So the first thing I want you to realize is that for you to create a stat or a scatter plot, you have to turn on your stat plot and tell your calculator that you are making a scatter plot. So does anybody remember how to turn on the stat plots? Second Y equals. You're going to go into plot 1. You're going to turn it on, and the very first option is a scatter plot. So it should be black, on, off shouldn't have anything over it. Scatter plot, notice the X list is L1, the Y list they say is L2. Okay? Now when I hit graph, my scatter plot is on, but I still can't see it. Anybody know why? What is this viewing window? What's this value right here? Negative 10. What's this one? What's this one? What's this one? Right, not necessarily just zoom out. I just need to change the window to fit what I'm looking for, okay? So I have to change so that I have an X minimum, an X max, a Y minimum, and a Y max that match my data. So what would be a good X minimum value? Okay, I want to be a little below it so that I can see it. So 5 would be fine. Okay, X max, 25. Y minimum, 20. Y max. Okay, now that I have this, when I go to my calculator, I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to physically change these things. Only these things. They aren't just in this order, so be careful. So go to Window. You're going to enter 5, 25. Then you need to go down to Y minimum, enter 20, and 45. Now when I hit graph, I have this lovely scatter plot. Scale. If you're dealing with really big ranges of numbers, sometimes we change that to 10 or 100 or 25. But each little tick mark represents 1 because the data values aren't that far apart. Okay, so everyone raise your hand if you do not see this scatter plot. You don't see the scatter plot? Did you turn your stat plot on? Hit graph. Okay, anybody else? You don't see it? Come here and see me. Hurry. Troublemaker. You didn't turn your plot on. Enter, on, scatter plot's on. Boom. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is what we're actually asked to do is to find the equation of the line of best fit. Your calculator is going to do this for you. We're going to do this by finding the linear regression. On the blue calculators, you're going to go to second list over to calculate. On the others, you're going to go to second stat. No, I lied again. Stat and over to calculate. Okay, so blue calculators, second list, over to calculate, which is all the way over to the side. On the bigger calculators, you're going to go to stat and over to calculate. Everybody is looking at a screen that looks like this. To find the equation, you're going to find the linear regression. On my calculator on the screen, linear regression is what number? 4. On the blue calculators, it is 5. So you need to choose number 5. Okay, you have to tell the calculator what data you want it to use. So to do that, on the blue calculator, you're going to hit second list. On the bigger calculator, you're going to hit second stat. And it brings up your L1, L2, L3, L4, 5, whatever. Okay, so we are using what two lists? L1 and L2. So I'm going to enter L1. I need to put a comma between L1 and L2. On the blue calculator, that's to the left of the 4. On the bigger calculator, it's above the 7. Now I'm going to do the same thing. So second list. And I'm going to choose what now? L2. Now I can hit enter. And it throws this stuff out at me, right? Everybody sees the same information? Your values should be exactly the same as mine. If they're not, you've punched something in incorrectly. Does everyone have these values? Okay, so from this I can come up with the equation. Who can tell me what the equation is for this data? Y equals what? 1.49. We're going to, because of the decimals here, we're going to go to 2 or 3 decimal places all the time. So 1.49 what? X. Plus 10.05. Final answer. Okay, now, since I have this, I'm just going to take you a step further in the explaining here. I can take this information and I can graph it to show the line of best fit with my data. To do that, I'm just going to go to y equals, and I'm going to type in the exact equation I have here. 1.49x plus 10.05 graph. And now you can see the line of best fit that goes through the data that I have entered. Everybody see that? It's a beautiful thing, right? Wonderful. Okay, on the next one, I'm going to give you a minute, about 2 minutes, to graph the scatter plot, draw the trend line, and then make a prediction. Okay, you should have enough time at this point. Your graph should look like this, right? Pretty close to it. Whenever you are making a prediction, it's really important that your graph is as uniform as possible because it's really hard to make a prediction with inaccurate information. So after I have my graph, my points plotted, I need to draw a trend line that best represents it. So a line that best represents it is going to be as close to every point as possible, but also have the same number of points above and below. So there are 7 points here. I can't just draw a vertical line and say, oh, there's the same number on each side of it. I can't just draw a line straight across that says, oh, there's the same number for each of them. There's obviously a negative correlation here, right? So my line should be negative, and it needs to be as close to those points as possible. So I'm going to say it starts about here, and probably about there. Okay, I have 2 points that basically fall on the line. I have 2 points above, 3 points below. That's pretty close, right? So based on this information, so this is all K. On L, what would my prediction be for 2010? About here. So what would you estimate that to be? So I hear 1. So 1 million. Any other estimates? 0.5 million. I would say either of those would be close enough to a prediction. Okay. I would probably lean closer to a 0.5. It's hard to tell from where you're sitting, I'm sure. But somewhere in that range. Okay. So between 1.5 and 1 million. Or not 1.5, 0.5 and 1 million. So the next one, M and N, are dealing with the exact same information. However, we're going to use our graphing calculator to find the equation of the line of best fit to the nearest thousandth. Okay, so with our calculator, we can clear all of the data that we put in there very quickly by going to, on the blue calculator, you go to stat and down to clear. On the big calculator, on the blue calculator, you go to second list, over to calculate. Nope, that's not right. Over to ops. Over to ops and down to clear list. It's option 3. So you should have clear list with a flashing cursor. We have to tell the calculator what you want it to clear. So what do we want it to clear out? What data do we put in? L1 and L2. So I'm going to go to second list or second stat, depending on your calculator. I'm going to choose L1. I'm going to put a comma between them. Remember, the comma on the blue calculator is to the left of the 4. On the big calculator, it's above the 7. Second stat or second list. Choose L2. And hit enter. When you do that, it's going to say it's done. With what we had just put in, there weren't that many data points. It doesn't take that long to delete them. But if you put in a lot of data points, you're having to hit delete, delete, delete over and over and over again. This just takes care of all of it at once. Okay? So, if I want to make a scatter plot or find a line of best fit based on this information, where will I put this information right here? The L1. And what about this information then? L2. So, in my calculator, I'm going to go to, depending on which one you have, on the blue calculator, you're just going to hit list. It's going to open up L1 and L2. On the bigger calculator, you're going to go to stat edit. So in L1, I'm going to enter all of these years. So do that, please. Go over and enter all of the decimals that we have. Make sure that you have the same number of data points in each list. If you don't, you've made a mistake. It's because it's up higher. But thank you. That's all right. All right. Raise your hand if you don't have all of your points entered. Okay, I'll give you another couple seconds here. Omar, you got it? Okay. Who can remember how we determine the line of best fit using our calculator, that equation? How do we find it? Anybody remember? What? No. That's what everybody's guessed today. Okay. Second stat, then what? Calculate. Then what? Linear regression, lin-reg. So on the blue calculator, that's option 5. Then what? No, well, I have it. Once I have lin-reg showing, then what? I need to choose my L1 and L2. How do I get there? Second list, L1, then what? Comma, don't forget that comma. Then what? L2. Whoops. Delete. And now, enter. It's going to give us this information. So based on what my calculator says, what is my line, my equation for the line of best fit to the nearest thousandth? Y equals what? Right? Then what?
X plus 223 plus 0.272.
Okay, so this is M. What do I do for N? What do I do for N? How do I find N? What am I going to plug it into? X. So I have Y equals negative 0.111 times 2010. Plus 223.782. Follow your order of operations. So when I multiply, what do I get? Negative 223.11 plus 223.782. So what's Y equal to? No. 0.672 I'll buy. Okay, think about L on the last slide. What was our estimate? It was between what? 0.5 million and 1 million. Was our estimate or our prediction close? Yeah, we did a good job. Okay. So what I want now is I want to talk about these just a little bit as a reminder. Whenever I am factoring trinomials, first question I have to ask myself is what? This is from lesson 72. Okay, what do I have to ask myself when I look at the trinomial? It first has to be... Right, they've got to be in standard form. So a squared plus, or excuse me, ax squared, ax squared plus bx plus c. Is 4 in that form? Yes. Is 5? Is 6? Is 7? No. How can I write this so that it is? Okay. Now, which term am I trying to multiply to get? And number 4. Number 4. 24. I want to multiply to get a positive 24. And the two numbers that multiply to get positive 24 have to also do what? Add to get 11, a positive 11. So what are numbers that multiply to get 24? So 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 4 and 6. Of those, how can I get an 11? Positive 3, positive 8. So I can rewrite number 4 as a product of two binomials. What will go in the first parentheses? Right. Okay. All of those. What multiplies to get 20? Adds to get 9. Multiplies to get, let's do 5 together and then I'm going to leave you alone. What multiplies to get a negative 40 but adds to get a negative 3? So what two numbers multiply to get 40? Give me a list. 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. I need a negative 3 from one of these pairs. How can I get it? 5 and 8. Which one's going to be negative? 8. Here's a good rule of thumb for you. Whatever sign the middle term has in your trinomial always goes with the bigger number. Okay, so since it was negative here, the 8 is bigger than 5, it has to be the negative. Everybody with me on that? So how do I write this? That's K actually. K. K minus 8. Okay, this is my final answer. All right, you have the rest of your time to work.